Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Islamic terrorism has struck again. This time it's the terrorists of Al-Shabaab, unleashing death and destruction on Somalia's capital city in East Africa.
Al-Shabaab's latest attack occurred in the capital city of Mogadishu, this time during a siege at a popular beachfront hotel and restaurant. At least 20 people were feared killed when the terrorists attacked with a car bomb, followed by gunfire.
I was with friends when they detonated the first explosion. Luckily I survived, but my friends died on the spot. I saw windows being smashed and people began to run here and there. It was actually a sad moment. What a world we live in. There is almost no place safe anymore.
The Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists are waging an insurgency against the Somali government and spreading terror to anyone who opposes them. Some Somali Americans have reportedly joined the group. Kenyan troops have intervened in recent years to support Somalia's unstable government. They want to defeat Al-Shabaab and keep the group from spreading its militant Islamic ideology to their country. In the process, Al-Shabaab has killed scores of Kenyans in terrorist attacks inside Kenya, including in 2013 at a popular Nairobi shopping mall. Most recently, Al-Shabaab claimed to have killed about 100 Kenyan peacekeeping troops in southwestern Somalia earlier this week. Kenya has yet to confirm that death toll, but Al-Shabaab's wave of terror isn't expected to end anytime soon.
Russia intends to reinforce its military presence in its western and central regions in response to NATO's intensifying military exercises. The Russian Ground Forces Commander Colonel General Oleg Salyukov says Russia will form 3 new military divisions in the western and 1 in the central theater in 2016. Salyukov added that Moscow will conduct 7 joint military exercises with foreign countries, including Pakistan and Vietnam, in 2016. NATO has been beefing up its presence in Eastern Europe since Crimea rejoined the Russian Federation following a referendum in March 2014. Russia has repeatedly stated that NATO's increasing activities near the country's borders undermine regional and international stability.
A desperate desire for jobs. This has been the call of hundreds of people in the impoverished central town of Kasserine since Tuesday. A young man killed himself when he was refused a public sector job. The protest spread like wildfire. Demonstrators stormed local government buildings. Others clashed with riot police. 1 policeman has been killed and dozens injured. Tunisia has been looked upon as a model for democratic progress in the region. But since the unrest in the country in 2011, there has been rising discontent over a lack of jobs and high living costs.
Bomb attack near the Egyptian capital Cairo has left 10 people, including 7 policemen, dead. The incident took place near a road that leads to the site of the ancient Egyptian pyramids in the suburb of Giza. A bomb exploded as a team of officers raided an apartment suspected to be a militant hideout. Over a dozen people were also injured in the blast. No group or individual has claimed responsibility for the bombing, but security forces blame ISIL-affiliated terrorists in the rest of Sinai Peninsula for similar attacks in the past. In a similar attack on Wednesday, terrorists attacked a checkpoint in the city of Al-Arish, leaving 5 policemen dead there. Egypt has been plagued by insurgency in its Sinai province since the ouster of President Morsi.
Police confirmed that 5 gunmen detonated 2 car bombs in Mogadishu before storming the restaurant at the Lido beach. The Islamist Al-Shabaab group linked to Al-Qaeda has claimed responsibility for the attack. 4 of their gunmen were killed and 1 was captured.
Around 3,000 protesters have gathered in Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur, to denounce the U.S.-led Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, trade agreement. The protesters demanded the government reject the accord in a parliamentary debate set for next week. They say the TPP will affect Malaysia's sovereignty and jobs will be cut. TPP aims to create the world's biggest free trade area that includes Chile, Malaysia, Singapore, the United States, and Japan. In October, 12 Pacific nations reached an agreement on the TPP trade pact.
Friday morning's deceptive calm, a precursor to a potentially historic winter storm.
This is predicted to be the worst storm our state has seen since Snowmageddon.
The huge storm packing a cold punch across parts of the South, and blizzard-like conditions expected to barrel up the East Coast, leaving heavy snowfalls in Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philly, and all the way up to New York State.
To give you an idea of just how big this blizzard is, take a look at this photo taken by astronaut Scott Kelly from the International Space Station. That white flash you see in the muddle there in the middle, that's thunder snow. Isn't that cool? That's when snow is accompanied by thunder and lightning. They call it thunder snow. Makes sense?
85 million Americans are now dealing with a blizzard that could well make history by the time it's over tomorrow. So far, at least 17 people have died in this storm. 40 inches of snow have already fallen in Glengarry, West Virginia. Up to 30 inches are in the forecast for New York City. Hurricane-force winds of 75 miles per hour created blinding whiteout conditions in Virginia. 11 states, plus Washington, D.C., have now declared snow emergencies. Tonight, coastal communities are flooded. Hundreds remain stranded on highways. Power is out in many areas. Planes, trains, and buses are going nowhere.
Scott, bands of sleet like this fell all day in Charlotte, but the real fear was a forecast of freezing rain that could turn this city into an ice-glazed nightmare. Snow was falling during this early morning traffic accident, a fatal accident. The woman's body wasn't discovered until 8 hours later. Weather-related car wrecks have killed 6 people, at least, in 3 southern states. Duke Energy has called in 2,800 out-of-state line workers to help restore power. And Scott, the utility reports 30,000 power outages in the Carolinas.
Winter Storm Jonas is living up to expectations as a walloping winter storm. After a steady downpour all night, tens of millions of people from Mississippi to Massachusetts woke up Saturday morning covered in snow.
It's icy. I would definitely stay off if you have to, if you can.
It made for dangerous driving in places like Kentucky, forcing the closure of Interstate 75 about an hour south of Lexington, leaving 3,000 stranded motorists feeling frustrated.
I've been stuck out here since 5. I actually have a coworker of mine who is 6 miles up the road from where I'm stuck, and she had been there since 1:30.
Others are taking it in stride.
Waiting for this snow all year around, where I can make some money this year, where I can do some plowing.
While some see an opportunity to make green, most see snow white, if anything at all. Wind gusts from 60 to 85 miles an hour forecast along the East Coast, spawning fears of coastal flooding in places like Delaware and New Jersey. And already, the blizzard-like conditions causing potentially deadly whiteouts in Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, and the nation's capital, expected to get more than 2 feet of snow. My colleague Jennifer Wishon adds this from Western Virginia.
The Shenandoah Valley and parts of northern Virginia are in the bullseye of this storm. This is where snow totals are expected to approach 3 feet. On Saturday, wind gusts of 25 to 30 miles per hour will combine with the snow to create whiteout conditions like this. The weight of the snow and high winds are putting folks here in real danger of power outages.
Utility companies report more than 160,000 people are without power, and several storm-related deaths have already been reported in Virginia and North Carolina. And a near-tragic accident for this pup in Fairfax Station, Virginia.
Come on, Milo. Come on.
Firefighters rescued the St. Bernard after he fell in a lake where it was below freezing and with a wind chill of 8 degrees. He's said to be doing okay. The end is in sight. The system is expected to move out Sunday and give way to temperatures above freezing so the cleanup and dig out can begin.
In Beijing, temperatures plummeted to 30-year low of minus 17 degrees Celsius. In northeastern China, it reached minus 40 degrees. Temperatures in central and eastern regions were 8 degrees lower than the average. But together with the powerful cold wave, strong winds are expected to further bring shivers. As heating demands continue to surge, power grids are being tested to ensure there is sufficient power supply. Meanwhile, The central and eastern portions of the country have been struck by snowstorms. Highways in at least 12 provincial regions have been closed since Friday. As the Spring Festival travel begins tomorrow, local authorities have been put on.
Turkey is experiencing extreme weather as well. People are struggling with heavy snow and rain.
Since the beginning of January, sporadic storms have covered many places across Turkey in snow. Though the sight is beautiful, the effects were harsh. Schools were shut down for several days. Business people experienced difficulty reaching their offices. Hundreds of flights were canceled during the last few weeks, and many were stranded at the Atatürk airport in Istanbul due to delays and last-minute cancellations. The government issued warnings stating snowfall is expected to continue until January 25th.
Let's check in with Ellen Baca. She's following some breaking news out of Alaska this morning, where an earthquake hit about an hour and a half ago. Ellen's in the tracking center with that and your forecast. Ellen?
Yeah, Evan, Coco, we go from the East Coast and the storm system there to an earthquake on the West Coast. It's near Anchorage, Alaska. So if we take Storm Track Live Full, you can see where this actually is. We plotted it for you. So this actually plots all of the earthquakes. Every little red dot you see is an earthquake. And you can see that giant bullseye there. That's in Alaska, just southwest of Anchorage, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake, which is fairly large. Now, the good news from this thing is, so far, there aren't any expected injuries from this. There are expected power outages, but we're not expecting to see a tsunami. So again, that's southwest of Anchorage, just northwest of Kodiak, Alaska.
Well, a new report has revealed that Saudi Arabia has been funding many U.S. covert operations around the world. The New York Times says the U.S. spy agency, CIA, heavily relies on Saudi funding. As we will see in this report, the secret dealings have been going on for decades.
Saudi Arabia has been colluding with the United States in supporting militants fighting against the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The CIA has the lead in training the militants on assault rifles and tank-destroying missiles, and according to the New York Times, the oil-rich kingdom writes the checks. It says support for militants in Syria is only the latest chapter in the dealings between American and Saudi spy services. The New York Times cites several former and current U.S. administration officials and sources from Persian Gulf countries to conclude that the Saudi funding for CIA operations has been going on for decades. It particularly highlights Saudi financing for the Central Intelligence Agency in Afghanistan against the Soviets, as well as the proxy fights in Africa.
It is interesting to see the New York Times highlighting the close cooperation between the U.S. political apparatus, and in particular the CIA and the Saudis, going back for decades, to the point that they're now even reporting that Saudi Arabia was contributing millions of dollars to the Contras murdering people in Nicaragua back in the day.
According to the New York Times, the cooperation between American and Saudi intelligence services explains why Washington is reluctant to openly criticize Riyadh for its gross human rights abuses and its support for extremism. The Daily warns that Saudi Wahhabism has inspired many of the very terrorist groups that the United States is fighting. The revelations have further exposed the double standards employed by the United States. The U.S. intelligence community seems to be well aware of the depth of Saudi support for terrorist groups in the region and beyond. Washington has kept criticizing and imposing sanctions on many other governments that is accused of human rights violations, while Riyadh rarely gets a slap on the wrist.